I was actually, I got in my office and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting stuff going. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have a link for this. Charlie's awesome. No, I was like,
Uh,
and you're just so relaxed now because like we've been doing it for so long and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'll just wait. Someone will send a link. It'll be fine. I always
it'll
feel
be
it's more
okay.
stressful for you guys.
Well, I was just doing a client call, and he said we haven't got long, have we? Because you've got a webinar, so you need to go and like prep for your webinar. I'm like, okay, fine.
Well, I'm gonna bring you back. Where are you? There you are. Okay. I'm gonna share my screen. Is that
Okay.
cool? Do you have anything to kick off with?
No, I don't know.
Okay. All right. Okay. I'm gonna share that. It's probably the safest thing to do. Okay. And then are people on already? Can they hear us? Because I see 10 people in. But
Um,
maybe they're waiting.
you know what? I would like to tell you that I know the answer to your question.
So if they are listening, well, there's lots of people on. So hi everybody.
uh,
Maybe because I don't because normally we'd be in you'd go to broadcast, but I think we're already in broadcast mode. So yeah, people are joining us. Hi everybody. It's good. They'll get a good laugh out of that.
yes, they can. Carla says, yeah, we can. Everybody who's on can hear both of
Yeah,
us.
there you go. See? Let's live and learn.
Who was that? I know that was Max. Max sent me a note saying you can hear us both. Hello, Max.
Good thing. Yeah. Thanks, Max. Good thing we didn't say anything we shouldn't.
uh,
I'm
so
gonna do this.
we're going to send the link out to the Jim Collins
Yeah.
event in the newsletter this week and out to clients. But where did that come from? What was the
Well, it originally came from, I believe, well, it comes from the growth faculty out of Australia. And originally, they were putting together Jim doing sort of a full day going in September, going around, basically, I think they usually do UK, they do North America, and they would have done Australia. And I think instead of that, because that's a bit on hold right now, instead of that, they're sort of replacing it with this, which makes sense. I don't think Jim Collins has ever, that I can remember, live webinar ever. So it's a new time, and I think it's a really great opportunity because I'm a good Jim Collins groupie, and I think it's a really good time to actually hear what he has to say.
yeah?
And
Well,
it
you
fits
try to
in
get it.
really nicely with this, right?
Oh, totally. Well,
Yeah.
it's this that the whole flywheel and BHAG and three concentric circles. What are you passionate about? What can you be world class at? What makes you money?
Yeah.
All these questions are just things that often people haven't sat down and thought about. They're in business, but there's no
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, and I also think that because, a lot of people through this time, some have stalled out, some have stopped, some have waited, and there's still, it doesn't matter good times and bad times, we still have to answer those questions. And I know, people, talk to a lot of people, they're like, oh, the building's on fire, and you want me to talk about like why we exist and, like all those things, but no, we still have to keep putting water on the building. But we have to still understand why we're putting the water on the building. What's the longer term? Should we actually put water on the building? Maybe we should let it burn down and go the other way. I don't know. But so it's been really interesting, that long-term view, and then that near-term view, which is the 3HAG, right? That's what made our BHAG really exciting. And then working into just surviving.
And how are the clients that you work with feeling about the near term? In the last week, I would say many of the people I've spoken to in the UK, it's the world hasn't ended. And they're now they're now a bit more optimistic than they were a couple of weeks ago, but then they don't know whether that's just false dawn and actually come October, November, whether we're all going to go off a cliff again.
Yeah, well, I think I keep asking the same sort of questions on, well, it used to be how long would lockdown end? And for some, till it ended. Now some people are out in different phases of reopening. And then when will, the new normal really kick in? And then when will the economy recover? And I would say from, the middle of March when I started asking those questions, and now we're in June, I can't even believe that. The horizon keeps, is moving out. And I think people are just getting their heads around, really that this is something we have to figure out and live through. It's not like some events that we've gone through in the past, like 9/11 was, that event happened. Actually, the whole world did change too. And we, solved things through security measures and all that, and the economy. Now, this is such a different time because the only way we really solve this is we, being humans, have to reimagine our behavior and then what we do in business. And then we're all sort of waiting for a medical solution. And so I found last week when I asked those questions, people were talking about the economy recovering out into like 2024 now. That's the furthest out I've seen. So we've got to get our heads around this and plan looking out rather than looking down.
Yeah. Well, and there was a thing in the Harvard Business Review that I looked at, which looked at the last few recessions, and it said, for those of you on, you haven't missed anything. We, Shannon and I, just chatting till we get a few minutes past the hour, and then we'll dive in. In case people are joining, thinking, "Oh my God, when did this start? Have I missed it?" No. So there was, and what that did, it looked at I think the last 3 recessions, and it said only 9% of businesses 5 years out had more revenue and more profit than they did before they went in, and it looked at those that did survive. Yeah. And what they had done is they had done 2 things. They had made their core business more efficient, and they'd used the money from the efficiency in the core business to innovate, and that strategy was better than just innovating or just saving money. Right.
Well, and a lot of people have said, what would you do different now than 2 months ago? And my answer is nothing. You should do the same. It's the same system. It's just that our playing arena, right? The arena we're playing in has changed drastically, right? So that's our external environment. And we have to figure out, okay, how are we going to play within that environment now? And that's been all the shifting of businesses. And I would say it's the decisions, and I love this article I saw from McKinsey. I'll mention it here. The decisions that we make right now, right? Those are the ones that will make sure we strongly get out the other side. But there's lots of organizations that aren't making decisions right now. They're sort of waiting, and that actually sets you up, for a bumpier road. And we just have to, make a call as a leadership team to what we think is going to happen, commit to it, and then drive through it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, let's crack on. We're just after the hour. So yeah. Shannon, thank you very much indeed for joining me today.
You're welcome.
For those people who don't know you, do you want to do your own intro?
I'll do a little. I can do it. Yeah, I'll do an intro, and I sort of popped it in a little ways in. So if that's okay, I'll just we'll come back to it then. Get it going. Yeah.
Go on then. So we've got the format for people is you're going to do a bit of a presentation. We've got some questions already, and people in the chat can throw some more at us, and between us we can hopefully answer whatever comes our way.
Yeah. Okay. I just put together, I don't know, we talked I said about 20 to 30 minutes just to give an overview, sort of context and perspective, and then and I'll see what questions I can answer along the way, and then we'll definitely do a good round at the end, because I think there's lots of good questions out there. So I always like to kick off with a bit of a question, and people can use the chat window. I'm going to switch my view so I can see the chat window, and we'll get going. So when you see this picture, I want you to type into the chat window one word. What's one word that comes to mind when you see this picture? Try and make this as interactive as possible. Yep, so we've got long, adventure, freedom, hot, forward, speed, slow, awesome, possibility, careful, difficult, Utah, yeah, clarity, bendy, yeah, open, adventure, slow down. So, and I love that because there's not too many people typing in the same word. And that's one of the most important things we've got to think about when we're on a team, a leadership team driving a company forward, is we've got like a whole team with us, and we've got to actually think about what are those decisions that we will make together, because business is a team sport. And the word that I actually had was, it actually didn't come up either, is I had destination. We don't usually get on a road to nowhere. We always get on a road to a destination. And I think the biggest thing around this time, that what Dom and I were just talking about, is the road we thought we were on might have changed, right? It might be going another way. It might be more turns than we thought. It might be harder. Someone said harder than we thought. And so I like to leave that, because that's a bit of a theme as we go through the next 20 minutes or so, 30 minutes to actually chat through this. So I just threw a slide in on my own journey, and it was a wild road as well. Having been, really lucky to found a global payment processing business based on the internet in 1995. Everyone laughed. That wasn't a thing. Banks laughed. And we were absolutely awful at growing a business in the first 4 years of that business. And we got really curious as a leadership team to how can we make this easier? How can we make it a bit speedier? And how could we be confident in our decisions? And most people laugh at that because it was all new, and sort of like the world we're in today is all new. That's where this whole growth system started. We did it together with our leadership team to find this way that we could make this repeatable growth system. Well, we got bought by PayPros in 2006. We became a 400-person company, and we backed the same system into that organization. I left there, started a new company, Subservio. We actually fully validated, this whole methodology with 3HAG Way, of course, being the glue that held it all together. And that was, you can see we were bought 3 years later. It was one of the top 3 deals on Wall Street that year for mid-market companies. And we were definitely the top deal in Vancouver in Canada that year. From there, a serendipity sort of played out, started coaching, then, wanted to make coaching a lot easier for me and my clients. So we built a little platform called Metronome Growth Systems that was just for my clients, so that it would be easier for them to actually create the playing field, that accountability playing field. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then Metronome United. So thankful and grateful for the 60 plus coaches now we have around the world who know the system, implement the system, and are getting the same results as we got in our organizations, for me as a CEO, but as well as a coach. We see the most active companies getting between 2 to 3 times top line growth in less than 3 years. Even in this time, I'm going to put that out there. I wouldn't have said that before. And really driving cash flow. We're seeing at least double the cash flow. And you'll notice I didn't say profit, because profit's something we can't put in a wheelbarrow and walk away with. Right? Cash is something we can put in a wheelbarrow and walk away with. And I want companies to actually put a lot of cash in the wheelbarrow and walk away with it. And, right now, cash is king. It's really tight. And the more we focus on cash and build our business from there, the actual easier it gets, and taking advantage of all the cash sources that are out there for us. So I always think about building the longest cash runway you can. And it's like, so what, big deal. Well, the cash runway, and all their clients that I work with and companies, I actually ask them every time we meet the days of cash they have available. How many days of cash? And I can tell you, my clients laughed at me before this time. They definitely don't last now. They figured out those days of cash, and it's to the destination we're going, right? If we don't have cash for the gas for the bus, we're definitely in a, would be in a bit of a trouble. And when we're leading a company, we have a lot of people on the bus with us. It's really important that we can actually understand what it's, how long of a, runway do we have? And we wouldn't get everybody on a bus, or maybe you're big enough that you have 2, 3, 4 buses following that one. And we need to make decisions every time we come to a stop sign or we pass a road. And we don't want to be unconfident in those decisions that we take, whatever decisions we make as leaders, everyone's following. And as a CEO, I definitely don't want to be driving that bus by myself, making the decisions by myself. So part of this process is getting everybody's heads around the destination and where we're going. So I'm going to jump into two places. One, I'm just going to do a quick overview of the growth system, that the 3HAG way is the glue that holds it all together. And then I just want to talk about, the next piece that all this fits into, which is process, right? There's a process we're getting in place. There's people. We talk about people a lot. And some of the questions that came in before this were around people. Quite a few of them were around people. And then the last thing is behavior. It's the behavior that we take on, that we commit to, that we're willing to actually make some changes in our behavior, how we drive the bus with the team and where we're going. So just a quick overview of the growth system, as we call it. I know lots of people are familiar with, BHAG, that's Jim Collins, your big, hairy, audacious goal. It's your 10 to 30 year goal. Now, I was working with a group last week and I asked who had one, and it's the same. It's usually less than 10% of the group has a big, hairy, audacious goal. How about on this group? We've got a good group on here. Type in the chat if you've got a BHAG. You don't have to type your BHAG in, but just give me an indication of who's got one. And Dom is looking over in case, Dom's like, you better say yes. So I absolutely love that. Okay, see, I knew there was a high probability that there was a lot of BHAGs on this call, which is great. And then, I always put it on a mountain, because a BHAG is like we're climbing a mountain. And in a pandemic, it's probably like, it's just a storm we've got to get through. Oh, there's one no. I love that. Someone's got a 36 months. That's awesome, right? And so the BHAG is great. It's our 10 to 30 year. It's like we're all on the bus. That's where we're going. Our 3HAG that's our sort of interim step. It's a stopping point. We get to maybe pull over for the night. And then our 12-month is a little closer, right? We can map that out even more in detail. And of course, our 90 days. And so we want to have that view out there. It's because we're trying to line up the whole team to come with us. They're on the bus, but if they're on the bus and they don't know where they're going, that's just, we would never do that as humans. We're human. We want to know where we're going. And it's human for us as business leaders to share that as well. Now, 3 barriers to growth. And they haven't changed no matter in like decades. Okay, the number 1 barrier, leadership. It's us. It's the leaders. We're the number 1 barrier. And that covers a lot of things, from who's on the leadership team all the way through to what decisions we make and how we actually create the plan that we're going to follow. The second one is market dynamics. We know the whole world has changed out there, and we absolutely have to have a really good handle on it. And if we have good practices to keep, the market alive that we're talking about all the time, makes it way easier. And then the last piece is scalable infrastructure. Some businesses are overwhelmed right now. They're in a marketplace that they're in really high demand and they're hanging on. And then there's other businesses right now that are trying to reimagine how they're going to take advantage of the infrastructure they built till, the pandemic sort of hit the world. But those are all things. These are the things that will actually prevent us from growing up. And then, the key thing, and we know that, we know business is about people, right? We know without a team, we can't really do anything. And the reason I put this in here today is because this has been around, these thoughts, for, oh my gosh, 40, 50 years. And Jim always said discipline habits. So at a time like this, discipline habits are even more important. But we added the word team in, because the team has to have disciplined habits through this time. We added the word team. We need to continuously learn together. The team needs to continuously learn together. And the last thing is we need team accountability. It's not myself as a coach or Dom as a coach. We're there to actually guide and create that accountability platform for you and your team. And it's definitely not, the CEO holding a big stick. It's none of that. If we can set out where we're going, it makes it way easier to drive the team forward. And so if we think about that, for us, this came through from us when we learned about the one-page plan back in 1990, 2000. And it was just that view of actually lining things up in where we're going. But the thing for us that really brought it together was having a 3-year highly achievable goal. Before that, we had a 10-year goal, we had a 1-year goal, we had a 90-day goal, and then we put this 5-year super wild ass guess in the middle of it. Why? Because that was less risky. Why? Because you know what, we could imagine that, but we probably didn't have to deliver on it. And so after not delivering on it quarter over quarter, reporting to my board of directors, we decided that maybe we should bring it closer to us to make it real and to actually be able to map it out, line it up with our strategy, and line it up with our execution path we're on today. And we know the biggest thing is it's so easy to write this plan down. Now I know hundreds and thousands of companies who've written down a plan like this, but I don't know as many who are able to line the company up and drive towards where they're going. I do know that if you actually can write the plan down, that's the process, get that going, line up the people, right people, Jim Collins right over, right people, right seats, doing the right things. There's so much more to it than that, but that's, a good start. And then of course, right, we have to actually empower the team to make decisions on where we're going. So we actually ended up thinking about it this way. We said, well, CEO, absolute foundation of the organization. Everyone needs to know core purpose, core values, 10 to 30. Okay, we'll make that the foundation of the house. And then we need to have this system that ensures the leadership team and the rest of the organization remains cohesive because it's about a team. We wouldn't have, professional football, soccer, cricket, whatever, wherever you are, we wouldn't have that. We wouldn't have teams. We wouldn't even come close to performing well if they weren't cohesive. And then the human system we brought in to ensure that everyone understood, what their function was, why they did it, and how they're going to be measured. And this actually was a way to attract A players, right? Attract, orientate, train, coach, keep, grow is how we think about that. The very top of the house is the team. And it doesn't really matter what we do inside the house, but this is just the basis of a team. And it took us a lot to break it down this way. Inside the house is the things we know about business. We need an execution system, we need a strategy system, and we've got to have cash. At the end of the day, it always starts with forecasting cash first. And that actually is so tightly tied to your 3HAG. Lots of people think a 3HAG is just a bunch of tools. We do it, we're one and done. We go all the way around the steps and then we're like, yeah, what should we do next? Well, the whole idea behind this and where we got to is to make it repeatable, make it easy for leaders so we didn't have to think about the process anymore. We thought about what went on inside that process and do it with the people, right? We want to actually build the company with and drive the behavior for the biggest success of our team. And so that's where this whole system came from. But interestingly enough, that 3HAG piece was a piece that I probably was maybe most naive about when I came out to coach, because I just thought everybody had one, right? I didn't even talk about it in my first book, a 3HAG, of course, because we thought we were behind. We thought we were just like, sort of like, oh, I missed that, course in business school, or I missed that book. But what we learned is that others did not have it, and nobody wanted to pick a 3-year highly achievable goal because, and write it down and then build the strategy to it, as I know lots of you are working through, because it's risky, right? That was the first thing that, my board of directors said, oh, I can't wait to see you, deliver on that. But the whole idea behind it is to actually become better at predicting. And a lot of people laugh right now because who predicted a pandemic? Like nobody truly predicted one for this particular year at this time. And so for us, because we've already predicted the future, we just have to take out that whatever we decided was going to happen for the year. And now the environment's changed and we have to adjust and make some decisions together. And I would say better, faster decisions, but we need to do that quickly in the context of our one-page growth plan and in the context of our detailed cash forecast, right? And what are the widgets? What are those things that flow through your business that we need to actually either change? I know some companies have absolutely changed what they do. They're using the same infrastructure. They're actually selling something else and they changed really quick. Others are selling the same thing, some more, some less. And they're trying to figure out within the infrastructure they have, what's the cash runway so that we can, predict next quarter what's going to happen in the next. If we don't make that line in the sand prediction, we won't. We'll just sort of like, willy-nilly, gray, go along. And it's better at least to call something and say, yep, we're going to do that. We agree as a leadership, let's do it. Because I can tell you with, my experience with my leadership team, every time we said, yep, we're going to do that, it wasn't a straight line, that's for sure. It was so far from a straight line. But we had this path that we knew where we were going. We had everybody on the bus. Anyone could have taken the wheel to make a decision on when we got to the next stoplight or stop sign. And that's what we're trying to do. Good times, bad times, other times. We just have to line up the whole team. And, I wish it was a straight line like this. It's just not. It's such a false view when we line it up like this. It's more of a view like this, right? We're just sort of like trying to make a lot of decisions and the bus is going all over the road. We got all these people following us, but that is reality. And the only way that, we found to do this in a repeatable way, to do it with speed, was to have these pictures that we had created. And the pictures are ugly, they're Post-it notes on markers that I'm like the worst drawer ever, so they're never pretty. But we're just trying to get everybody, following with us so that we can actually get the best out of the team. So they can actually contribute and go, hey, did you think about this? Because you know what? All the way out to the edges of our business, our team members have the best view of the business. And if we can't share what we think, at the core, being the leadership team, and then all the way out, we want that feedback. I loved spending time as far away, not that I didn't like my leadership team, but as far away, get to the market all the time and do that with, people who are in the market every day. It helps us make better decisions all along the way. And, lots of people said, what should we do right now? And my thought was nothing really different. We need purpose and goals. Right? Goals that we know we can achieve. And a lot of people go, but the whole world's changed. So I go, well, do your best, like from the pit of your stomach, do your best gut out on what you think's going to happen, best, worst, most likely, and then start, moving along. Well, what if it changes? Well, we have to adjust the picture. We're going to keep adjusting the picture. And that's where over communicate comes into play. And then of course, the last thing, cash is king. It's overused. The cash runway is king, mapping it out, knowing your days of cash. And then you have to repeat. That's probably as simple as it gets, at this time. And nothing, that we've talked about with any of our clients, with any, groups I've presented to is any different than I probably would have said the same thing. And I know I would have said the same thing, 14 weeks ago, 16 weeks ago. Because it doesn't matter. We've got to create this rhythm and we've got to make some really, the decisions we make now are so key. And, it's been interesting to watch clients of mine, actually some jumped right in with 2 weeks, made changes, and others have been taking a bit longer because they couldn't get their heads around, the horizons that we were going to hit. They couldn't get their heads around, they're focused on very, I say head down, and I get it. I totally get it. I've lived through pretty much every downturn in the market since '95. This one is, one of the biggest. But we've got to go look down, take care of, team, the business, look up and look out. And so this is part of this. I love this from McKinsey because the cash runway has to go throughout this whole time. And then this article came out, I want to say May 27th, but it was just before I was presenting to a group. And I just thought it was so, so appropriate, because it's all about the decisions now. The decision we make right now actually will tell us how we perform out the other side of this. And the thing that came from that article, I think I like their articles because they always have pictures. You know, I like pictures. So it's like, oh yeah, I got that. I don't have to read the whole article. I see the picture. But I loved their terminology of through cycle outperformers, because I always say we're getting through the tunnel. It's not threading the little needle, like we've got time we need to get through. And but those that made really strong decisions didn't only get through, they accelerated out the other side, to what Dom was talking about, and understanding where to grow, right? And then how to grow. Those two things are alive in a 3HAG and alive in this whole system. So it actually bodes really well. The big thing is, and I know Dom's probably had this same thing, as coaches of, you know, companies who are on a maybe a high growth path that just changed a bit, or it actually increased. No different. We're there to support the process of making better, faster decisions, and ones with, you know, confidence at the end of the day. I always say ease, speed, and confidence, and most people laugh. They go, "This is not easy." And I get it. So I just say ease, because we're trying to make it a little bit more flow in this. And then the other piece that I've talked a lot about, you know, in this question, it's a rhetorical question, is, you know, what's the difference between a startup early stage CEO and a COVID-19 CEO? Well, like nothing, absolutely nothing. Because a startup early stage CEO, you know, needs, you know, the why, long-term, near-term, annual goals, 90-day goals, consistent communication, over-communicating, cash, and so does every CEO right now, big or small. Everybody, you know, I've never seen companies so fast hone in on their cash runway and figure out, you know, someone had become an expert, no matter what country you were in, on what is that cash, right, that we have available. So I just have a few more slides that I want to work through and get you to think a little differently about this and about the whole system. Because so many people have asked me, you know, they'll say, oh, you know, 3HAG, you know, these are nice tools. And I go, well, they are nice tools. But if you can fit them in to the execution and strategy system, married up with all the people that you have, because you're always going to have people on your team unless you're a solo entrepreneur, which is fine. This still all applies. It's just that you don't have to do as much people work. But if we're working through it, so the first thing that we think about is, well, there's a process that we've got to get rolling, a process in place. Okay, then we have to go, okay, we get that process going, and no matter, you know, it's really funny, everybody in the world of business went back to process. And in process, it's execution and cash. That's what we think about, no matter what. Everyone had their head down doing that. The next thing that people look their heads up a bit and we're like, oh, some people are doing really well this time and some people are not, was people, right? So we got execution and cash going. Then we're like, oh, do we have the right people? And we had to think about people, meaning maybe we have too many people. Maybe we should take some people out. Maybe there are some C players who just are not going to survive this time, and they probably shouldn't have anyway. But you know, it becomes, you know, a bit brighter light when we're in a bit of a urgent situation. And then the last thing is behavior. And when we see this behavior piece, it's like, as I look back over, you know, 20 years of being a CEO and then coaching lots of CEOs, the process piece, everybody can get that going. Whether you use a scale-up execution system that, you know, how you get your priorities and your cash lined up, or you use EOS, or you use Great Game, or any of them, it's like awesome, because we used pieces from all of them. We're trying to figure out an execution system that would work for us. And even as those evolved, we were still grabbing some pieces and, you know, putting them together in something that would work for us. But cash was king, right? Cash forecast, cash first was at the base of that. Then we got it going, right? As we do, no different than at this time either. Then we apply people to the best of our ability, right? And then, okay, that's not the end of it. And I actually thought back in the day. Everyone said like, oh, we're always trying to balance people and process. But the thing that actually takes us through that is, as leaders, what behavior do we need to bring to the table in order to ensure we can actually have this for a long time? And even at this time, people are going, I don't have time for that. I go, well, you're already in it, right? You're already behaving a certain way that sets the stage. And it's up to us to have the awareness of our behavior, you know, CEO, leaders, and then what happens out to the organization. If you do that, yeah, you see that kind of success, and you'll see that strength coming out of this as well. And when we think about that in terms of this system, right, we focused in, even my own companies, and I look back at every sort of like downturn that we went to, everybody always goes back here first. They go execution cash. Yep, got it. You know, and people's heads are coming up right now going, check. Okay. And in some cases, they had to go a little wider, right? But then people go right to the strategy. And I'm not even going to say strategy system. They go, now what should our strategy be? We've settled down execution. What should strategy be? And then they try and do the whole thing. And they think strategy is like one and done. Like we get some tools, we write our strategy down, and then we'll go back to execute. And that's truly, you know, we did that too. We had the strategy, we put it up on the shelf, and then we went back and executed on what we were doing. And they would never meet, right? They're like way over there. So we thought even more about this. Well, what's really happening? I was thinking about, you know, observing my clients too. Some went back to this, but because we had the strategic pictures, we actually said, okay, let's get this settled down. I think every company out there I know has settled this down. Okay, we've got, you know, we can sleep at night, lower our anxiety. We can see our cash runway lined up to what we have to execute and what we have in front of us. And the next thing though, which is funny, a lot of people go, oh, strategy, the whole world's changed. Let's get a strategy. And honestly, one of your best next steps is to go to people, right? Just, you know, I think every company I work with, we didn't really change anything. And lots of you have BHAGs too. You just have to check in on your cultural system, check in that, ooh, is our team as tight as it needs to be? It gets really tight at a time like this, that's for sure, because you're in the fourth quarter and you're, you know, going for the win to get through it. Our human system, it's not perfect, but we got to make sure our people understand what they're doing. And then we have our people at the top of the house. So everybody's gone back to recheck. Either they've had to shrink their team because of what's going on in execution, they've grown their team, or they're somewhere in between. But I know every team that I've worked with, I'm sure, Don, you too, that, you know, people, we've had to actually level set on people, and probably faster than we ever thought we would. And then from there, so we go. I was talking
to a CEO this morning who placed an ad for some new salespeople, and they've had to close the ad because they've been overwhelmed by applications. And so they were really going out to market test their assumptions around their existing people. And they came away thinking, you know, they just know what would have happened a year ago, and what happened now, they've been absolutely overwhelmed by the volume and the quality of the application. So I think, you know, if you don't go out and test, you'll never know.
No. And I think it's absolutely time. So we've had people add, you know, they're on the growth side of this, right? They're adding. And we've had others, you know, do a really good team assessment of who's on the team right now, right? And they've some, you know, we're doing it as they would every 90 days, but they've actually, people after execution and cash, people's your next stop is to have a really good look. And there's good people out there. And, you know, testing out that message is good. I love that they're overwhelmed. So I'm just going to go back. So if we go from there, the only thing that's not covered off is strategy. And everyone's going, why are people doing that last? And it's because this is the need right now. But it's the need of any business. You don't even get to strategy until you get the business running, that it can sustain itself. And so that's what we've observed over this, you know, last 12, 13 weeks. I've lost track, but it's been a while working through this, and everyone's sort of settling down, and we are getting back to strategy. And the one thing about strategy is it's not one and done. We know that. It's founded upon the things that we just talked about. We need to have, no matter what, this time or next time, we need to have a line in the sand for our 3HAG. And, you know, most of the companies that are working with Dom, I know you're working through this, right? This is like around and around we go. And people always say, when you get to the end of this, what should we do now? Well, you go around again and you just keep going. Why? Because the whole world around us keeps changing. Why? Because we're going to actually keep this alive so we never fall off a cliff, right? That was our big thing, right? In my first company, we'd like go up, we'd come across plateau, and we'd have a chance to fall off the cliff. In the first 4 years, we fell off the cliff a few times because we had this strategy on the shelf and we had execution over here, and they weren't together. And this allows us to put it together because the first, you know, step 2, 3, and 4 of a 3HAG, and if you're not familiar with it, you know, 3HAG ways out there, there's lots of, you know, ways to learn about it. But the step 2 is all about your execution internally. It's your key process flow map. Step 3 is to look out into the arena that you're playing in and see who's all playing. And a lot of arenas out there, companies have, their arena has shifted big time, right? Companies are gone, new companies are in. You have to see who's playing. And step 4 is probably, you know, where I've spent the most time up until this point, and now I'm moving on with my clients to sort of re-up the view of the market and how they, you know, are they still on the dimension they thought they were and moving towards. But it's all about the core customer and confirming that the core customer that you had, you know, last month, the month before that, that it's the same one, maybe, maybe not. And are their needs? It's about their needs. They might have, you know, you might have prioritized the top 5 needs, and maybe number 5 need now has become the number 1 need. We have to rethink that. We have to reposition that. We have to test that out. And lots of people are going, but, you know, our customers don't want to talk to us right now. I go, oh, they want to talk to you. They just don't want to be sold yet because they're trying to figure out their needs, right? So it's on us to make sure, serving our core customer, that we understand those needs, because that's the foundation of your strategy. The key process flow map, foundation of execution, core customer, foundation of strategy. And so we have to recheck that and then go in and go back to the pictures we have and actually line up to make sure it makes sense, right? We can see it. Maybe the timing got pushed out right now. Maybe the timing has come closer. And I have clients in both of those situations right now, and they're just re-upping that, and we're stepping through it. While we have execution and cash going, while they're taking care of their resources, their team, they're now focusing in on strategy, as we would every quarter, actually continue to work through this. And we do it in a way that we have enough pictures to get us there. So if we think about this, now we've got it all going on, but we can't do that, can't do those pieces unless we have execution and cash going. People don't have a brain unless we can sustain. And even, you know, I have some clients who are figuring out how to sustain their businesses right now. We're still picking off, you know, the people and the strategy, because as you know, we can't forget about that. We have to find a way. We've got to find that extra time. So we want to pull this all together. And the biggest reason is, again, we're lining everyone up, right? We're lining everyone up. Process, people, behavior. Behavior is the last piece, and it's how we behave at this time is as important. And how reactive are we, or how creative are we? And when I, you know, look back at all the different things we did as CEO of a leadership team of a high growth company, or as a coach, you know, it's all about, you know, it's been interesting. People go, I don't have time to, like, you know, get them to work out, ask the questions, come back and recommend. And I said, no, you know, we have to level out when it's like the hose is on fire. We have to say, go get the hose, get it on that piece and over there. But we still can't lose, you know, how we grow up as leaders through this time and beyond. Because everything we do in a high stress situation, we'll go back to who we know we are, which is that reactive. We'll just be who we are. We're going to get through this time, and that's what resilient leaders do. But we have to be in awareness. Are we on that side, or are we actually moving and creating those creative competencies? And so when we think about that, and I look back over different companies I've worked with, I looked over my own company's success. Well, when you get the process going, right, you get some growth, you know. Maybe it's traditional, the way we do it. When we get focused on people, so process and people, and really look at those systems of people, we get a bit better trajectory, right? It's good, we're there. But if we really want to go to that nth degree, those companies that really grow through any time, and we'll see them like in the stock market today, those companies always come out above everyone else. It's the third thing that they have in place. They have the behavior piece. The leaders are actually have, their heads around getting to another level and bringing their teams with them. Both the leaders are committed through who they are, sharing, learning, coaching, not just themselves, but with the team, right, to actually grow to the next level. And when we think about that, it's not an overnight process. And we get good at process, of the execution of cash, and we're like, yeah, I can think about doing that as an entrepreneur too. Yeah, we got this. And then you realize like there's a hole. The next thing you got to do is people. And you're like, oh yeah, people. But once you get people, funny thing is, then you actually go back and add your strategy process in the three-head way. And as coaches, what we've learned is to actually iterate. So when we work with companies today, and even myself, when I think of my second company, Subservio, we layered this into every quarter. We turned the dial and got better at all of these. But we know the thing that actually got us, to where we wanted to go in our world, which was growing through. We grew through a few different downturn markets. 2008 was the worst one till now. And we, had the brains to start a company that year that, sold to broker dealers. We had to figure out a way. But you know what? We had the process. We went and we had half the people from our time before. But what I learned most through that time was it was all about the behavior of myself, right? Being vulnerable and going, hey, I'm not very good at this. I need your help to improve this. And all the way we would cascade it throughout the whole organization. So the last piece of this is the behavior piece and how we cascade that out, even through this time. You don't even have to do a lot, but you're creating that system to go with everything else about business, popping everything in behind it. So with that is an absolute buildup, all of it, right? It's a buildup. And when I think about this, and Dom and I talked about this, it's sort of like, what are those steps? Well, you've got to have, as simple as it gets, so simple. You've got to have that meeting rhythm and standing agenda lined up to the plan you've written down. You've got to only focus and talk about that. The weekly CEO email, that seems ridiculous that I would have that in there about everything I just talked about. But it is everyone misses that. It's the most important thing. Because as a CEO, we're going so far, so fast. We're trying to hold it all together. But if you just take that 13 times in a quarter, you go look at, what we wrote down together at the beginning of the quarter, and you look at it every week. And then you actually, I would have either, Metronome Growth Systems can build it, or, your assistant can build it. But I know that if the CEO looks at that 13 times in a quarter, you actually get there faster. It's so ridiculous. And the email's not really for the team. It's for you, the CEO, to stay focused on what we said we would do. The third thing that I didn't have, though I killed myself on Word and Excel and, having 400 people in the company have this one-page plan, and then you go to a quarterly meeting, you make a change, and then 400 people have to print off a new one, of their one-page plan. So the software, the habit around the software and creating that accountability playing field, that's really what it is. It's not a project management system. It's none of that. It's actually so we can see ourselves playing the game with the team that right now is so remote around the world. Every team out there is not together, in any way, shape, or form. So it gives us a way to see how we play together. And for me as a coach looking in, awesome. I can actually coach the leadership team. And then for everyone playing together, do you need help? I can give you help. Just like as if you were on the soccer pitch, right? If somebody needed help, you'd go help them. And then the last piece is strategic pictures are key. If you don't have those pictures and we don't keep looking at them, it actually takes longer. It'll slow us down. So the pictures are the last piece. And that's where we get, I took a step back thinking about this ease. These are the things that made it easier for me, speedier for me as a CEO, and then delivered confidence because we kept like every one of those things created confidence. It's sort of ridiculous. So I'll leave it there at that. And then maybe we'll answer some questions.
Yeah, sure. Shannon, one of the questions that I've had is that does your quarterly theme, so using a quarterly theme to galvanize the organization over a 90-day, does it always link to the 3-hack?
No, absolutely not, actually, because and the reason I say that is quarterly themes, like the purpose of a quarterly theme is to line up the team to the plan. So they understand the plan, what the key thing is to get done in the plan for that quarter. And so if it's a quarterly theme, it doesn't have to line up to the 3-hack. Now, normally, if we've aligned it properly in the view, and I don't think I have that view anymore, but I'm just gonna, oh yeah, I do. If we lined it properly up in the view, it actually hones the whole team to focus into that one thing we have to get done this quarter that will move us, one more quarter closer to our 3-hack. But it doesn't have to be absolutely like named or this, but we do tag things we do every quarter to our annual, right? And then to our 3-year highly achievable. So there's usually alignment, but it's sometimes not obvious.
And what does WDYR mean?
Oh yeah, thank you. That's like a made up home acronym. It's what do you recommend? It's my favorite question. So I don't know, I think it was quite a while ago with my own coach, and he said, "You're just awful at delegating." I was like, "Really?" This was like, about 4 years in at Paradata, and we had high growth, and I was like, "Oh, okay." He goes, "You should read these 3 books," and he handed them to me, and I'm a book junkie, so I was like, "Okay, I read those. I'll read them again." And we met again, and he came back and he said, "So, tell me about delegation." And so I told him, and I said, "But at the end of the day, old school delegation, it just means that I still own it if I delegate. And it means that I still own it. If I delegate something, who owns it?" He goes, "Well, you do." I go, "Yeah, but I don't want to own it. Like, I want them to own it." And so then the way he and I sort of worked this out, and I've been like sort of curious about this from a human perspective, because if I had all the monkeys on my back, we're not going to grow at the rate we need. I needed to share them. And so it always gets back to, if everyone knew where we were going, which if we do a good job, they should know where they're going, we can ask, "Okay, we need to get there. What do you recommend?" And people would always ask me questions. As a 20-something CEO, like, I had no idea what the answer was, right? So, the other side of it was I couldn't believe they thought I would know the answer. So I just started just going back and go, "Well, what do you recommend? What do you recommend? And then please give me 2 other options you considered, and why did you choose that one?" And people go, "What? Like, that'll slow you down?" I'm like, "No, that's like monkey off my back. If they come up with the answer, they will own it and deliver it." So that's WDYR.
Yeah. Henry Stewart wrote the Happy Manifesto, and in his book he talks about projects are pre-approved, and it's the same thing. It's like, I'll tell you the framework in which you need to go and make a decision, but then go make a decision, and whatever you decide, we're going to do. So it's absolutely on you. It's not on me. And it's, otherwise people don't own it. Let me see if I've got another question. Oh yeah, somebody said, "How do you find a great coach?"
I think the thing, because I went through a lot of coaches. I'm going to say that out loud. Maybe it was me, but maybe it's what we're going through. But for me, like every 3 years, I seem to get a new coach, but it was a bit on the journey we were on. I think how do you find a great coach is you got to go meet a lot of coaches, because it's no different than if you're hiring someone into your organization. There must be fit, right? They must, obviously line up to where you're going and want and get excited about that and have purpose and passion for that. And, a lot of people go, "How do I find them? If I have to meet a lot, how do I find them?" And that is the biggest thing. I got lucky. I kept asking people, who could you recommend next? Who could you recommend next? There was no, I think between 95 and 2000, I don't even think a business coach was a thing, right? Honestly. So today there's many organizations out there, so many, you know, from our organization to Great Game, Gravitas, Scale Up, and it's more than ever. And I think the biggest thing is you got to take a step back and look at yourself on what you're willing, right, and have the desire to achieve. And then that's where you got to go say, well, I need to get here, here, here. And there's so many books out there. And I think the big thing is at the end of the day, you know, all those, it's almost too crowded and noisy, right? Too crowded and noisy. And the thing that, you know, I always am amazed that people who find a Metronome United coach actually come in through our site to find a coach, because it's just so noisy out there. And I think the biggest thing is before you go looking, take a step back and write down your own 10-year goal, your own 3-year goal, your own 1-year goal, and then go, okay, I need to go find a coach with that. And networks are important. I would say, Dom, is that true? You probably get your referral business is probably huge, right? We get referred a lot of companies because they, you know, their 2 CEOs are talking or 2 leaders are talking and, oh, that's what I'm looking for. I want that, right? And it's got to be more than want. It's got to be a willingness and desire to actually, you know, get to where you need to go.
Well, and you know, one of the other questions we'd had was, where do people fail? And I think that's where people fail. It's, look, there are no shortage of gyms, right? And yet not everybody is fit as they would like to be. And the difference between that is it's not, and as you said, there's lots of frameworks, there's lots of models, you know, do you really want to change? And are you prepared to put the work in? And that's individually or as CEOs or as companies. We can't do the work for people.
No. And I would say on our side, we're looking at the same thing, you know, is that leader, you know, coachable? Is there coachability in there? Because otherwise we won't be successful either.
What about building leadership teams? What, do you have any, either from your own leadership teams or from clients?
I'm pretty, maybe I just have a lot of scars from that. But the one thing I know about leadership team is you must have 100% A players on your leadership team. If you're going to actually have A players throughout your organization, you will not be able to do that. So your leadership team has to be the very first A team in your organization. And if you give on that, if you hire what I would call a B player, which is like sort of average, or you let a C player in, you have just slowed down, stalled out your process. So, you know, I think I learned that the hard way. You know, in the first company, we had, you know, not 100% A player team, and we had B's and C's in that leadership team, and that stalled us for a few years until I could like actually get my head around that and go, don't hire that person. And that's going to stall you out, but I'd rather not hire for that role. If I can't find an A player, don't hire. And in Subservio, we took, it was so painful because I know that if you don't hire in the leadership position, either someone else is going to wear 2 hats on the leadership team, or I'm going to wear 2 hats on that leadership team. And we see it so much. You know, we're wearing, as a CEO, if you're wearing more than 1 hat, it's even harder to grow. But if you actually gave your hat to someone who's a B or C player, oh my gosh, you might as well have kept it. You're just wasting time, energy, and money. So it's all about A players. And that, I know that's so easily said and really hard to do.
Well, and also the thing, I think until you've experienced it, in your mind, you think A players might cost you more money. But for me, the definition of A is the top 10% of available talent for a given job in a given location for a given salary.
Yep.
And those people aren't more expensive. You've just got to work out how to attract them and then keep them.
Yes. Well, and the more you attract, the easier it is to attract them. That's that's the kicker. That's why on a leadership team, you actually want that A player. And we know that a team of A players, on average, you might pay them a bit more, right? On average, than like maybe an average team. You might pay that A team a bit more, but overall, your total labor costs will be less. Overall, because you need less people. Because an A player is usually that 1 equals 3.
Well, normally when I say to people, have you got any A players in your business? And they sit and think about it. And I say, okay, have you got people in an A spot and somebody who's not? And people go, they say, look, oh yeah, that person is 3 to 5 times more productive than the average. One of the questions I've got is, lots of businesses say their purpose is shareholder value, actively making money. Should businesses put effort into crafting a compelling, emotionally driven purpose?
Yes. You know, I was going to say that. But yes, I mean, so here's the thing, and this might sound strange, but my first business was venture backed, you know, VCs from US, Canada, you know, the Valley down in California, Palo Alto. And, you know, it was a pretty cutthroat time, cutthroat board. There's dollars available, and we raised a lot of money. And so it was like, did that board of VCs care about core purpose, core values? Like, hell no. They didn't give a shit. Did I? Yes. Because that's the only way I'm going to achieve and create the shareholder value for them, right? Because that you know, we brought them in to get them a ROI on their investment. And you know, the basic, we know this is human, and what's in front of us right now is human. And that's what it takes actually to drive the value of your organization up. Do they care about it? No. Did I tell them what my big, hairy, audacious goal was? I actually didn't. They knew what we were to do. I didn't say, here's our 10 to 30 year goal. No, they invested in that goal. So I didn't need to tell them. What I needed to tell them that every quarter, right, that we are using their cash wisely to create the shareholder value they expected by a certain time. And that's why the 3HAG is the 3HAG, because of that board of directors. I would probably, yeah. Because when
you'd
you
still
go
be like everybody else, having this vague notion where we'll be in 5 to 7 years time.
Well, I probably would have been fired because my 5 years super wild ass guess wasn't cutting it, right? So, so once you put the 3 year down and you achieve it and they agreed to it, and we're actually working the market and creating the value on a shorter time frame, even though they had the big one, it actually made all the difference to our shareholders.
Do you think people, are your clients at the minute looking at their 3HAGs and thinking they're going to change significantly? Because I know I've been doing that with some of mine, and it's far enough out that they feel they don't feel confident in changing it, should I say. They're sort of saying, look, maybe we get through this. We don't really, if we're going to change it, what would we change it to? Do we drop it by 10%? So we may as well just leave it there and we'll see where we are in another quarter.
Yeah, I think every one of my clients have adjusted their 3HAG.
Okay.
And I would say there's a group that's adjusted it up, meaning they're on the high end of this time, and they're like, it's like they've, you know, pushed it up and they're taking advantage, you know, of this right now, and they're not going to waste this opportunity, and they've sort of doubled down. I have another group at the bottom end that's like I can't see how we could get there in, you know, the 10 quarters to our 3HAG. And so we've adjusted it accordingly, but because we have it all mapped out exactly how to get there, they can see, right? And we're just being realistic. And now that one that they had right now, did they just throw it away? They actually didn't. They actually still want to get there. They just think with the market they're in, it'll take a bit longer. So they're being realistic to their plan. And then I have a group in the middle that they haven't changed, their 3HAG hasn't changed. They feel they're still on that trajectory, and you know they're actually, you know, looking all around as we do in that process and you know, are they going to tweak a little bit along the way? For sure, but that's what it is. We never take a plan and throw it away, right? We're going to evolve that plan because we put a lot of work into that, and we're going to go, oh, something's coming out of left field. Yeah, we're going to deal with that. We might have to drive the bus this way and around, right, to go around it. But it's not oh, my plan's no good. I don't know if you have a company like that and gone like this, like, let's start again. No, you just like, that's not going to happen.
Shannon, that's been fantastic. Will you be able to share the slides with people?
Yeah, these are like first time ever shown slides, especially that people process and behavior. But I've talked a lot to my clients about it. What I'll do is I usually PDF and I can share them with you.
That's
and
fine.
You
And
can share them out.
Charlie can share them out if people ask us. That's brilliant.
Perfect.
I had one question, which is sort of a follow-up question, which is how do you get the weekly email? How do you dance between helpful and annoying?
Well, it's got to be really brief because it's really for you. So you just pick the way we got everyone actually to think to read them is we'd have a section of good news of just like the top good news, but you just have to put team member's name in the good news, right? Because then everybody reads it. They're looking for their name, right? This comes from the CEO. It sounds so traditional, but it's true. It's human. Then you only have in the middle section your top company metrics, not like this many, like the 2 that matter and where we stand on them. Just on your quarterly priorities, you probably have 3. Are they all green? If not, if they're yellow or red, whoever owns those probably sent you a blurb or And then, what I would do is when I was traveling a lot, which I'm not, but I would just say where I would be that week. That's it. Simple. They know it's just like a little, they can look at it, all comes up on their screen. They're like, hey, good. And if you hold that rhythm, everyone knows it's good. If you drop the rhythm, people actually start to wonder. Really, what's going on?
Shannon, that's brilliant. You're back over in September, all things being equal, to do some workshops with me in September. So that'll be brilliant. We've got a workshop on the farm in person, 23rd of June. But thank you very much for today and for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
We'll see you soon. Bye,
Cheers,
everyone.
Shannon. Bye-bye.